So in this video, I want to go over the overwhelming wall Sukuna has become, and why Akutami, I believe, wrote himself into a corner. Now, from the very beginning, I have not had an issue with Sukuna. I have believed he's been an amazingly written antagonist in the story, a driving force for the main characters, and what makes an antagonist great in my opinion. And so far, I do not think Akutami has ever had a fumble with him. I believe introducing Sukuna at the start of the series in Chapter 1 was fantastic, and I believe the finger progression has been really good as well. I know that's been a hot take in the community for the 15 fingers, but I'll go over that separately. You see, over the last couple of months, there has been this divide in the community on whether we like the Sukuna cycle or not. Personally, I enjoy the Sukuna cycle. I know a lot of people don't, but I just want to say that this is not really a bad thing, and why the Sukuna cycle has been shown to be very consistent since the start of the story. So before I go and bash Akutami's writing for stuff I do not like, I want to go over the praise for his writing and the unfortunate start of his setup of writing himself into a corner. Akutami introduces Sukuna in the very first chapter of the series, when Itadori eats the first mummified finger. Right then and there, we get a sense of how dangerous he can be, forcing Megami to start panicking and summoning Mahoraga. In the manga, he does not try to summon Mahoraga, but in the anime, he does. So I believe that's even worse for the anime in terms of Sukuna's power. Then Gojo shows up and does Gojo's things, and I think now with the added context of Gojo as a character and how his powers work, it's even worse when it comes to Sukuna's durability at one finger. You see, whenever Gojo punches, he uses blue to infuse his punches to make them extra powerful. Now, obviously, it's going to be a bit of contention on if he does it here or not. If you don't believe he does because he's toying with Sukuna and he doesn't want to hurt Itadori, that's completely fine. But if you believe he does, then that's going to mean that one finger Sukuna has more durability than Yuta. I personally do not subscribe to this line of thinking. I believe he didn't want to hurt Itadori, so I don't want to take that into consideration, but it's just some context to keep in mind. Later on, we see the second finger. Itadori takes the second finger, eats it. For a split second, we see Sukuna takes over. Itadori quickly quells that evil. Even Gojo's on guard when it comes to this happening to Itadori. Three fingers Sukuna, I think, is where the issue becomes very apparent. So they go to the detention center and we meet our very first special grade curse besides Sukuna. Now, the special grade curse in that detention center, we found out later in the series, is just completely irrelevant in terms of power. Not very strong at all, but it's important here because this is an inexperienced Itadori, an experienced Megami, and a semi-experienced Nobara. Megami and Nobara fortunately are able to make it out of the detention center, but Itadori stays back and calls upon Sukuna to help him out. Sukuna, only being 2 fingers at the time, missing 18 of his other fingers, accidentally uses reverse curse technique to heal Itadori's hand, and very, very effortlessly disposes of this special grade. It's such an effortless attack that he makes fun of the cursed labeling system, saying that we are both special grades. Very disappointing. He then uses his domain expansion and holds back and tries to cut him into 3s, but he actually cuts him into 5s even while holding back. Then from the school all the way to where Megami is at, he blitzes him, which is massive. I believe at this point he is 30 finger Sukuna, so it is absolutely wild to me that yes, this Sukuna is only 17 fingers off from becoming full power. He starts blitzing Megami around, and this is even crazier now with consideration of ripping out Itadori's heart, how he has to manually pump everything with cursed energy. And I genuinely believe this showing right here is the start of downfall and the plunder of Akutami's writing, because this Sukuna is 17 fingers away, but he's throwing Megami around like a rag doll to the point where attempts to summon Mahoraga. At this point, Itadori takes over and no more Sukuna for the time being. The story onward, we start getting buffs for Itadori and his crew. Itadori finally getting simple mastery of cursed energy and developing what he thinks at the time is his own cursed technique, at the time being Divergent Fist. Itadori believes this is his cursed technique, which we later find out is not, is in fact just an effect of not being well experienced with cursed energy. We then have him finally unlock Black Flash. We see him hit 4 in a row, showing that Itadori has amazing potential as a sorcerer. Then we see him fight a special grade cursed spirit, that being Hanami. Then we get the scenes with the new finger bearer curse. Now, these scenes right here also make me just highlight the Sukuna problem early on in the story. This finger bearer is considered by Megami much stronger than the last one, which is massive because of the fact it took a two-finger Sukuna to take him out. This finger bearer was able to contend with Megami and even fight him with his inexperienced domain expansion, which it took a hard high-diff fight for Megami to finally beat this finger bearer curse, showing that it is possible for the cast to dramatically increase in power and by a nice increase with a steady pace. But this all gets thrown out the window in Shibuya. See, at this point in the series, Sukuna is at 5 fingers, and I believe this is where Akutame blundered his story with 15 finger. There's a comment taken in the JJK fandom saying that Akutame should not have force-fed Sukuna 10 fingers, amplifying his power by 10 finger increase. Now, I am on the latter half of I disagree entirely. I think this is a great turn of events and a great plot twist for the story to move on forward, because if it was just a villain of the week format with a finger increase per new arc, I think it would have been horrible writing decision-wise personally for me, and the pacing would have not been very good. But this does highlight a couple of key issues. You see, during the Shibuya Incident, Itadori gets even stronger, so does Megami, and we also see more power from these special grade cursed spirits. And the key factor to this entire issue with Sukuna is the one and only Jogo. Now, Jogo is a cursed spirit that was introduced way earlier into JJK. He has only ever had 2 fights on screen, and that was with the 2 strongest sorcerers of all time. The Honored One, Ryomen Sukuna, or the Fallen, and the Honored One, Satoru Gojo. You see, these 2 times Jogo fought the 2 strongest people to ever exist in the Jujutsu world, which is a massive, massive issue, because he has extra skirmishes in the series, but they aren't really noteworthy. He has a quick jumping session with Choso, Hanami, and him, where he gets absolutely embarrassed. Then post Sealing of Gojo, he then blitzes Nanami, Naobito, and Maki, which at the time is not really the craziest display of feats, but it's the statements that follow. You see, the context of this blitz right here is Dagon. You see, Dagon was a cursed spirit that was giving the work to these 3 individuals inside of his domain expansion. He was throwing around the stated fastest sorcerer besides Satoru Gojo, a restricted heavenly restriction user, and a high tier grade 1 sorcerer. Then Toji shows up and it completely embarrasses him inside of the domain, absolutely demolishes. Now, this is important because when Jogo shows up, Nanami states that he's on a completely different level. This means that a base Jogo with no domain amp and hardly trying is stronger than a domain amplified Dagon. This Jogo then fights a 15-finger Sukuna, a Sukuna that is so powerful that he is compared to Gojo but more sinister in nature, and Megami feels him across all of Shibuya. This is the same Sukuna that fights Jogo in one of the most displays of power I've ever seen in the JJK series, where the rule was, if he can land even 1 hit on Sukuna, Sukuna will do whatever he wants. Is at this point we see an absolute embarrassment of a performance from Jogo. He gets thrown around all of Shibuya, he's slamming buildings trying to hit Sukuna, he's doing every AoE attack possible to try to hit Sukuna, but it's not working. Sukuna's efforts of cleave and the power difference is absolutely monstrous. We see the expertise and battle IQ of Sukuna during this entire scuffle. This is a Jogo who has been repeated over and over to be around 8 or 9 fingers of Sukuna. This is by a guy named Kenjaku, who even says this, who is one of the most knowledgeable people in the verse, and Jogo just repeats it multiple times, thinking it must be true. Now, I am of the crowd that yes, this is 8 or 9 finger Jogo. I do think he does scale to this. I think this makes a lot of sense. But an issue with this entire line of thinking comes later when he fights Mahoraga, and we will get there, trust me. During the scuffle with these 2 special grade behemoths, Kusekabe says they're like elephants tap dancing on ants, and they are the ants. That even high tier grade 1s pale in comparison to these 2 special grade behemoths rampaging all over Shibuya, making this entire city its playground. And so Jogo does a maximum output meteor, which Sukuna dodges with ease, saying that if it hit him it would have done some damage, but we don't know the extent of that damage because it in fact didn't hit him. He then proceeds to make fun of Jogo, saying, why did we not go into a domain battle? Jogo then goes, I know my limits. If you and I domain clashed, I would not win. That is where Sukuna has a problem with Jogo's ideology. Sukuna says, why not? Why not do it anyway? Sukuna, his entire ideology is to become the strongest. He does not care how he achieves this title. All he cares about is being the strongest and throwing everything to the wind for the enjoyment of Jujutsu itself. For the final clash, they open a technique, both of them. Sukuna opens up Fuga, and Jogo prepares with his normal fire curse technique. Jogo is completely curious on what he is just witnessing in front of him. Sukuna says that, right, you're a cursed spirit, you wouldn't know about this. So they clash, and he absolutely cooks Jogo. Jogo doesn't even stand a chance. Now, we get told that out of all the sorcerers he fought, Jogo was one of the better ones, so he should stand proud. He is strong. This is absolutely proven to be a inline thing for Sukuna to say, because Sukuna values strength above all else, and the enjoyment of Jujutsu, and he even sees that in the final moments of Jogo, he doesn't back down. So, after the defeat of Jogo, Sukuna goes wrong and then finds Megami. He heals Megami with output of RCT, then we see the excellent display of Mahoraga finally in battle. Now, this fight in Shibuya is what makes the Shibuya Incident what it is in the JJK verse. You see, Mahoraga is a Shikigami that has never been conquered by any Ten Shadows user ever. When you summon Mahoraga, in order for it to be under your control, you have to defeat it in its pact. And the only person who's ever done that in the entire Ten Shadows lineage is Sukuna. This battle rages all of Shibuya and absolutely decimates the entirety of this city. And we see the power that these two display, and it's nothing like Jogo and Sukuna. See, Sukuna was holding back against Jogo, and it's very evident here when he's fighting Mahoraga. In the manga, this fight's more tame than the anime, so I'll go over both and give my opinion on both. You see, in the manga, the fight is very quick. We do get displays of Mahoraga's physical capabilities and Sukuna's battle IQ, but it's really tame compared to the anime. We get them throwing each other through buildings. We get the same line of if he was a cursed spirit, he would have been one-shot. We get the domain expansion, him getting obliterated. We get a other domain expansion of then into Fuga. The only relevance of this entire fight is the fact of this creature that Megami summoned is what Sukuna felt so many times. And it is so evidently clear that yes, he is what Sukuna expected of Megami's potential. You see, Mahoraga is a Shikigami with one of the most broken abilities in the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen. Full adaptability. It is a technique to where he can adapt to anything that ever is being thrown at. The panel even tells us that the ability to adapt to any and all phenomena, kind of like a late throw in rock, paper, scissors. You see, when Mahoraga gets hit by any attack, slowly over time the wheel is going to spin, and when it does a full spin cycle, he adapts. Sukuna even mentions that in order to beat Mahoraga, you need an attack that just kills him outright, and that is what Fuga is. Fuga eliminates Mahoraga when he's weakened by the domain expansion. And we finally get to see the destruction of a domain expansion from Sukuna, a domain expansion which has been stated by the narrator to be an absolute masterclass of its own, a painter painting in thin air instead of a canvas, something that is truly a divine technique, showing that Sukuna's mastery over Jujutsu is nothing top one in the series. He has pinnacle control of anything Jujutsu. We finally see the demise of the battle between him and Mahoraga in the iconic panel of most of Shibuya being completely eliminated. But that's not entirely it. You see, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 shows us a battle between him and Mahoraga, which is completely different from the manga. It shows Mahoraga's adaptability being way more dangerous than the manga ever did. You see, during this fight, Mahoraga and Sukuna, for the most part, is just like the manga. They're being physical, combating with each other, they're throwing each other around, they're swapping blows, but something's very interesting with this fight. Mahoraga is actually adapting to Sukuna's fighting style and his way of thinking. We see multiple occasions that they are throwing the same punches every time. He starts fighting like Sukuna. He starts using more and more of the buildings around him and rubble to throw at Sukuna, similar to how Sukuna was doing. We even see that Sukuna has to use his battle IQ to think on the spot of a fake out with Cleave to truly damage Mahoraga. During this fight, Sukuna is pushed to the brink way more than he ever was with Jogo, and way more than he ever was in the manga. We even get to see a quick glimpse of Sukuna kind of being startled by the displays Mahoraga is displaying in Shibuya. But just like the manga, it is ended with a domain expansion Fuga combo. But in the manga, the first domain expansion completely wipes out Mahoraga into nothing. The second one, he adapts through and he hits him with a Fuga and finally puts the behemoth down. At this point in the series, you start thinking to yourself, how is the main cast supposed to catch up? We just saw Itadori struggling in extreme diff loss to Choso with a home field advantage. We see Megami, who was just had to high div outsmart a Toji corpse. What's going on? How do the main characters ever dream to get close to this power? Itadori and Megami at this point are still grade 1 sorcerers. Yes, Itadori did beat Mahito the special grade, but this was with help from Todo and completely outsmarting Mahito. He did not do it on power alone, and with Black Flash amps as well. So you start thinking to yourself, up against actual special grades or high tier grade 1s to low special grade sorcerers, they don't compete. So you start seeing a glimpse of Akutame's complete power cliff of the series, and it only gets worse from here. It really does. So let's move on from here to the Culling games. The Culling games have massive issues with power scaling as well and power cliffing. On multiple occasions, we start getting feats for Yuta. Now, Yuta is the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Yuta was the downfall of the power cliffing of the series. You see, in the Culling games, we get excellent displays of Yuta winning a 2v1 against two reincarnated sorcerers, that being Ryu and Uro. Now, Ryu is an interesting case. You see, Ryu is the entire reason why Yuta scaling is all over the place. High diffs Yuta. To be fair, Yuta is holding back, but I don't think that's an excuse for Akutame to do something like this. You see, when Sukuna gets reincarnated and takes over Megami's body, he completely two-shots and speed blitzes Ryu. And I think this is the unacceptable part of it all, because later on, when we find out after the Gojo and Sukuna fight that it took a month of training and soul switching for Yuta to even have good curse energy manipulation and to be on the level of Sukuna, I generally at this point in the series just wonder what was Akutame thinking when he had lines alluding to the fact Yuta might have been able to fight the Sukuna in Shibuya. At this point in the story with the Sukuna cycle and everything that's going on, I only can think of a few ways that Akutame can fix this. You see, right now, with current chapter 263, we have had a mess of what is going on and the wall that is Sukuna. We've had contingency plan after contingency plan on trying to beat this guy. We've had Yuta take over Gojo's body. We've had Itadori awaken, Todo come back. The massive amount of planning that's needed to happen, he still is going. Now with 263, he's backed up against the wall with Angel right above him about to smite him down with Jacob's ladder. And 264 should be coming out this weekend on Friday. I have not seen leaks or anything of the sort. Leaks will be releasing tomorrow. I will probably peep them. I'm not entirely sure yet. We will see. At this point, I don't know what Akutame is thinking. He's put Itadori on the back foot, and I don't think Itadori will do anything special in the next chapter. There is a statement where he says in his next manga he will fix a mistake and put the main character more prevalent. But my predictions for 264 on how he could possibly beat this is either this is it for Sukuna and he completely beats the allegations of a binding vow merchant and dies, or he activates a binding vow to get out of the situation. What I think is most likely to happen, Mahoraga to come back. I don't think this is it, but God forbid if Akutame somehow finds a way to include Itadori whipping out a domain expansion of any sort, I'm going to freak out. I don't know how he would be able to include that in the series, but here we are talking about it. Here, how far he's come. The punch and kick merchant, how far he's come. RCT, simple domain, blood manipulation, soul cutting dismantle, cleave, and now if Akutame throws a domain expansion, I don't know if he will. We'll have to see. I think it'd be really interesting if he makes a character the strongest above Gojo without a domain expansion, but we'll have to see. I think Akutame could potentially get out of this corner he's wrote himself in, but with everything that's been going on right now, I'm not entirely sure. The Culling game so far has been a wild, turbulent turn of power cliffing and overall weirdness. So we'll have to see what goes on in the next chapter for 264, which I will have a video on Friday when the chapter officially releases, which is in a few days. So we'll see. I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.